Welcome to the best course for learning the basics of React. My name is Sahand and I'm a web developer with over 15 years of programming experience. I created this basic course to share my experience with you. This course is made to help you get familiar with the basics of modern React. By the end of this course, you will be able to write the basic React codes and build a simple but practical application similar to Google Keep, which allows you to create and remove daily notes. This course starts with a direct and simple guide on how to install all the necessary software and create a React app. Once you master these basic skills, you'll then begin to work on Google Keep React project. This project will teach you many skills like React components, React properties, React hooks, and all the essential JavaScript methods like map and filter, which are being used in most React applications. It is completely fine if you have no prior knowledge of React. An introduction to React is provided in the course in details. This is a resource that will teach you about React while building a simple but practical application. If you're excited as I am to learn about the basics of React and build an amazing web application, then let's get started. Alright, so what is React and why we need to know about it? Well, based on the Stack Overflow latest survey, React.js is one of the most popular web frameworks, just below jQuery and above the other great frameworks like Angular. And according to Stack Overflow, jQuery is slowly losing its place to React.js over time. So what exactly is React anyways? Well, the web developers in Facebook, the creators of React.js, define it as a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. Basically, React is a front-end framework, and the best usage of React is to build beautiful user interfaces such as the ones on Facebook or Airbnb. One of the greatest things about React is to create repetitive elements like these profiles in Facebook website. As you can easily see, although these units are similar, but they have different pieces of information, such as the name or the profile pictures. So if you have too many of these units, you can basically make a particular component and modify it with different pieces of information, which can be received from an API or databases. Well, you finish up breaking down a very complicated website into a so-called component tree in React.js. For example, here in Facebook website, we have components such as navbar, feed section, or suggested users. These components can be used again and again and be customized so you don't need to write more codes to make more attractive user interfaces. And it also hugely makes the organization of your website simpler and easier. Previously, for building such a complex website like Facebook, we had separate different types of files including HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. However, what we do now in React is to basically combine these small amounts of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript into an individual component in a way that each component can have its own styling and functionality. And you can definitely make many of these components and reuse them inside different parts of your project. Also, another great thing you see in Facebook website is to load the feed screen without the rest of the page to be changed. You can see that even the page is not refreshing. This ability of React enables your website to be very fast and effective. No, of course, React is not the only front-end framework. So why we should learn React anyways? Well, if we compare React in Google Trend with the other most popular front-end frameworks like Angular and Vue, we can clearly see that React is being searched more than the others in the last couple of years. React is being used at many famous websites such as Airbnb, Uber, Facebook, and Netflix. and it's probably one of the most wanted and demanded skills out there. Actually, if you look at this recent blog about the most in-demand front-end frameworks in 2020, you see that the top front-end development for getting a job as a front-end developer is React above Vue. I hope you're excited as I am to learn this front-end framework technology. So without any further delay, let's get started and learn about React.js. Okay, in this section, we're going to install Node. We need Node later to install React and its dependencies using npm. Well, first we search Node.js and we click on nodejs.org, which is the official website of Node.js. Then we go to the download page, and here you can find all the possible installers, including Windows, macOS, or Linux. Just choose the installer based on your machine. My computer is using Windows 10, and I'm going to install the Windows installer. The Mac or Linux installation would be easy as well, but if you have any problem installing Node, please let me know and I will guide you through it. So we click to download the installer, and after the download is finished, we click to run it. Usually it takes about a few seconds until the installer is initialized. And then we're going to hit Next and accept the license agreement. Click Next again. We choose the folder we wish the node to be installed. I prefer to leave the default one. And we click Next. Click Next again. Next. And finally we press on Install button. The installation process usually takes a few minutes to be finished. Finally, we see that the installation has been successfully completed. Okay, in this section, we're going to install a text editor. The text editor I highly recommend is Visual Studio Code, or VScode for short. VScode is currently very popular among web developers. It has a lot of useful and great extensions that make the coding easier and faster. However, if you prefer other text editors like Atom or Sublime Text, it's totally fine and up to you. But I'm going to use VScode and I highly recommend it to everyone. Okay, let's install VScode. Well, first we search VScode and we click on code.visualstudio.com, which is the official website of VScode. Then we choose the installer based on our own computer, which can be Windows, macOS, or Linux. In order to have the best performance, I highly recommend to choose the stable version, which is much faster and reliable. My computer is using Windows 10, and I'm going to install the Windows installer. The Mac or Linux installation process is very easy as well, but as I mentioned before, if you have any problem in installation process, please let me know and I will guide you through it. So we click to download the installer. And after the download is finished, we click to install the VScode software. And we accept the license agreement. Click Next again. Make sure to select Add to Path and then click on Next. We finally press on Install button and wait for the program to be installed. The installation process usually takes a few seconds to be finished. Okay, we can now launch the VS Code and use it for our coding. Before using VS Code, I would like to introduce you some extensions that make the coding much easier and faster, and I'm using them always in my project coding. In order to add the extensions, you need to firstly open the extensions from View menu. The first extensions we are going to install is Prettier. Prettier helps us automatically format our code. So we click on Install button to install the Prettier extension. Then we need to go in VScode setting, which is in File menu, Preference. And then we search for Format and Save and select the Format and Save. This setting allows us to format our code as soon as we save them. Okay, we go back to the extensions menu again and we install the next extension. The next useful extension is Auto Rename Tag. Auto Rename Tag extension changes the closing tag as soon as we change the opening tag. Okay, similar to what we have done on previous installation, click here to install the extension. The next one is Bracket Pair Colorizer. The Bracket Pair Colorizer makes our code firstly more beautiful and also much easier to read. It colorizes the matching brackets, which would be useful when we have many brackets, especially in JavaScript coding files. Next useful extension is ES7 React Redux GraphQL React Native Snippets, which makes our coding very fast and exponentially increase our coding speed. During the course, I will let you know how to use it, but just make sure to install it now. Okay, that was all the extensions we need for now. Alright, in this section we're going to set up our local environment for React development. So, whether you're using addNote or VScode or any text editor you wish to use, we are going to get you started making React apps on your computer. Okay, let's get started. There's only few steps that are required to start creating React app. First step is to simply create a React app using npx. And to do this, we are going to follow the instructions from the React website. First, we need to search React.js. And go to the reactjs.org, which is the official website of React. Here we click on Docs. And then we click on Create a new React app. If we scroll down a little bit, we find the codes we need to easily create our React app. This is one of the easiest ways of creating a brand new React app. So, we have to run these codes inside the terminal. This is the npx command, which is, as they said, a package runner tool that comes with npm, and it will install Create React App on your computer so that you can create new React apps from scratch. And then the very last part is whatever name you want to call your app. So we need to copy this as it is to create a project called My App, and then simply paste it in the terminal inside VS Code. First, we open the VS Code and close the Welcome tab. And in order to open the terminal inside VS Code, we need to just press Ctrl backtick in Windows or Command backtick in Mac OS. Before running the code, we create the folder inside the desktop or wherever you wish to have your app folder. So open the file, open folder, choose the desktop, and create a folder. Rename the folder React App. Okay, now we copy the code and paste it inside the terminal. And then hit Enter to run the code. It's going to install the required packages, including React, React DOM, and React scripts. React script is basically the scripts that's required to actually be able to run React apps locally on your computer. Now, the first time that you run this command, it's going to take a while. On my computer, which is using Windows 10, it took something like 7 minutes to be finished. It might take more or less for you depending on your machine. But once it's completed, you will get something like this. Success, created my app at this location. And if you go inside the directory, my app, using cd my app, you can run npm start to start the server. This is going to use that module, React scripts, to run the script and open up the app. Please note that you might get some warnings from firewall. Just be sure to click Allow Access if you see any warning. And once it's loaded up, you'll see localhost being opened up in the browser. This is all we have for our app at this moment. And in order for it to show something else, we are going to have to edit our source app.js file. Okay, we go back to VScode. We see that we have two folders with lots of files including logos, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files. By the way, we are going to learn React from scratch. I'm going to delete all these files inside the two folders, and we are going to create each file from scratch and learn the codes line by line. So in the next section, we are going to get familiar with basics of React apps and create the fundamental files including HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, see you in the next section. Alright, in this section we are going to create the fundamental files including HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files inside the two folders that we have just emptied in the last section. The public folder is the folder that the browser sees and renders. So the HTML, CSS, and the graphic files including logos and images are located inside this public folder. On the other hand, the source folder src is used for JavaScript files, and the components we are creating inside our React application such as header, footer, and the main application are located in this folder as well. Okay, first we start creating the HTML by right-click and click on New File, and we call the HTML file index.html. This is the file that browser sees and renders. And through this file, browser looks for CSS and JavaScript files. So we need to link CSS and JavaScript files inside this file. Firstly, we simply write an exclamation mark and click Enter to select the first auto-suggestion to have the HTML boilerplate. Here we simply change the title of our application to React App. As we can see, we have head section and the body section. Inside the head section, we have to link to our external links and CSS files. And in the body section, we have to link to the JavaScript files. Okay, first let's create the main CSS file by right-click on public folder and select New File. We name the file styles.css to follow the naming convention. We just add margin and min height to the body. So we write body, and inside a set of curly braces, we write margin equals 0 to remove the default margin from the both sides of the body. In the most major browsers, the default margin is 8 pixels on all sides. Next, we set the minimum height of the body to be 100% by writing min height 100 VH. VH stands for viewport height. It lets you make things a certain percentage of height of your browser window itself, whether that viewport is a tablet screen, a phone screen, or a laptop screen. Using VH helps us have our footer always at the end of the page, even there is nothing in the main application. We're going to show you the benefits of using VH when we are creating our footer. Okay, it's time to add the CSS to the index.html. Well, just at the end of head section, we use the link tag to add the CSS link. Just write link and enter to accept the VScode auto-suggestion. Here in the href section, we write the address of the CSS file, which is just the file name. because the CSS file is located at the same directory as the HTML file. Okay, let's create the JavaScript file and link it inside the index.html. As I mentioned before, we put all the JavaScript files, including the React components, which are also JavaScript files, inside the src folder. Well, we create a new file and call it index.js, which again, just to follow the naming convention. We can link this index.js inside index.html by just adding a script tag at the end of the body section. Inside the src, we write double dot to go outside the public folder, and then a slash src, a slash, and finally the name of our JavaScript file, which is index.js. Inside the JavaScript file, we finally import the two React and React DOM packages, which we have installed earlier using npx create React app. So we write down import React from React and import React DOM from React DOM. Just make sure to write React in capital and React DOM as exactly the same as I wrote. This might work the other way, but the standard convention is like this. This would make your code more understandable to anyone else looking at it. Before continuing on the JavaScript file and writing the next line, we need to add a div inside the body of the index.html file with the ID of root. We call this a root DOM node because everything inside it will be managed by React DOM. It is actually a root of our React application, and we are going to manipulate this div using JavaScript. Basically, we don't need to touch the HTML file anymore, and we are going to write our HTML file from now inside the JavaScript file by manipulating this div with the ID of root. In the next section, I will show you how we can do this inside the JavaScript file that we just created. Alright, in the last section, we have created the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files, and we have linked the CSS and JavaScript files inside the index.html. We have also added a div inside the body. And as I have mentioned in the last section, we are going to manipulate this div inside a JavaScript file. Okay, let's do this inside the JavaScript file. Before continuing on our code inside index.js, let's try npm start now to check what we see inside the browser. If you don't see your terminal, just use Ctrl backtick, and if you are inside the My App folder, then just write npm start. You can see that the page is completely empty, but the title is changed to React App as we have changed the title inside the title tag in the index.html file. In order to use React to actually create something on the screen, we are going to use the render function. So we are going to tap into this React DOM that we have imported here, which gives us access to React DOM module. And we are going to tap into its render function. This render function takes two inputs. The first input is what to show. For example, we want to see a h1 tag saying hello world. And after the comma, the next thing that we can add as an input to this render function is where to show this hello world, for example. So the location is going to be a particular HTML element that we are going to target inside our index.html, which is the div with the ID of root. So we have to tap into the DOM using that document keyword, and then we use the method getElementById, and then inside a set of parentheses, we get to specify an element ID, which is the root. So we put it in there as a string. And now if we check the browser again, you can see we have now written hello world in our website, even though we have not touched our HTML file at all. We have already written a line of React code right here. We've used the React-DOM module's render method in order to display h1 inside that root div. But please note that we cannot put another HTML tag, for example an h2 tag, saying welcome to our website. In this case, we get an error in our browser saying that all the HTML tags must be wrapped in an enclosing tag. All we need to remove this error is just simply to embed these two HTML elements inside a single div element. So we add a div here and wrap it around these two HTML tags. And now we have only one HTML tag, which is this div. This is how we can simply write our HTML tags inside a JavaScript file. In the next section, we are going to learn about components and how we can have multiple components and import them inside our application. So we don't need to write all our codes inside this index.js. Alright, in the last section, we have written our first React code. We have tried to have more than one HTML tag using a single div and wrap all the HTML tags inside this div. Now we can see in the browser that without getting any error, we have injected the two HTML tags. In this section, we are going to get started using React components in our application. The reason we use components is to make our code clean and very easy to read. The first component as a convention is usually a component with the name of app. In this component, we put all the other components such as header, footer, and the main body of the application. So in the src folder, we create a file named app.js. As you may notice, the naming convention for the component's name is to use Pascal case, which means that every single word has the first letter capitalized. The first thing we do in app.js file is to import React from React. We don't need to import React DOM as we did in index.js. And then we write a function with the same name of the component's name, I mean app, and then a set of parentheses. Then open a curly braces, and inside the curly braces, we return our codes which are still inside the index.js file. So we cut the codes and paste them here after the return. And we save the file. As you can see, after saving the file, the code has been beautified as we have the prettier extension. A set of parentheses is added as well. So after writing our function, we need to export the function by writing export default app. The reason we use default is because of only having one thing to export. After saving the file, we come back to the index.js and import the app component. We simply write import app from ./app. We write the address with only one dot because the app.js file is located at the same directory as the index.js. Also, as you may notice here, we have not used .js after the app. Using .js is optional. You can either use it or completely remove it. And then we use the imported app here by just writing it as an HTML tag. The convention is to use the self-closing tag. However, if you use the other way, for example using the closing tag instead, is correct as well. But as I said, the naming convention is to use the self-closing tag. Now after saving the file using Ctrl+S, we can see in the browser that we are getting the same result as before. So we see that making a functional component is very easy. We just need to create a function and export it as a default, and then import it inside the index.js, and finally use it as a self-closing HTML tag. Alright, in the next section, we are going to make the header as a new component. and use it inside the app.js component. Alright, in the last section we created our first component called app.js. The app.js only have a function and we exported the app as a default. And inside the return section we have a div wrapping two HTML tags. And inside index.js, we have imported app from ./app and we use this app tag here to show it inside the browser. In this section, we are going to create another component for header. Usually as a convention, developers use a folder for components like header and footer. So we create a folder inside src folder. We click on new folder. We call the folder components. And inside these components, we're going to create the other components like header and footer. So we right click here and click on new file. We write header.js. Inside the header.js, we have to do something like we did in app.js, writing down a function and exporting it as a default. But I'm going to show you a trick, so how we can write down this very fast. As you remember at the beginning of the course, we have installed an extension called ES7 React Redux GraphQL React Native Snippets. This extension allows us to have a prefix for each method. For example, we have a prefix imp for import module name from modules. So the prefix we are going to use here is RFCE, which stands for React Functional Component Export. If you click on the first auto suggestion, we see we got import React from React, and we have a function that is returning a div, and we're exporting header as a default. So we didn't need to write all these things, and we just use a prefix to write down all of them. Okay, we just write down a simple heading, and inside the heading we write header, and we save the file. Inside app.js, we import this component just below importing the React. There's another trick for importing the components that I'm going to show you here. First, we delete these two tags, and inside the div, I just write header. As we write just the first few letters, here we see an auto suggestion from VScode suggesting us that we can import this header from components/header. So if we click on this auto suggestion, we're going to import the header easily, and we don't need to write down import header from this location. Okay, we just need to close this tag and save the file. We go back to the browser and we check that we have a header tag inside our browser. So we have successfully created our component and we have successfully imported inside the app.js. Okay, let's start making our header completely. Here I want to introduce you to something called Material UI. Material UI is a component-based library designed for React. By using Material UI, you can easily import some components for your application, such as navbar, table, or something like that. Okay, let's go to the browser and we search here Material UI. If you can see the first website, materialui.com, which is the official website of Material UI, a popular React UI framework. We click on this website. As you can see, they define themselves as a React components for faster and easier web development. For using Material UI, we just need to install them in our application. As you go inside the tab called Installation, we can easily install Material UI core by using this code. And after installing the Material UI core, if we want to use the Material UI, for example, if we want to use a button in our application like this, we just need to import button from Material UI/core. Alright, we just copy npm install Material UI/core from here and paste it inside the terminal to install the Material UI core. Okay, let's go back to the VScode and we go outside the application using Ctrl+C 2 times. Make sure you are inside my app folder, and here we paste npm install Material UI/core. The installation process usually takes a few seconds. Alright, the installation process has been completed. So we write down npm start to start our application again. Okay, we close the previous tab. The Material UI components that we are going to use is paper. If you go back to the website materialui.com and we search for paper, and if you click on the first links suggesting paper, we see that by using only paper tag, we can have something like this. We can use these kind of papers for our navbar. If we use the properties elevation, we can have more shadow in our papers. For example, this paper has elevation 0. This one is 1 as a default that we don't need to use. And also the last one has elevation 3. And for using paper in our application, we need to import it. So if you open the full source, here we see we have to import paper from Material UI/core/paper. We already installed Material UI/core, so we just need to copy this and we paste it in our component header.js. Just below import React from React, we paste this code. Now we can use it inside our application. So instead of having this div that is wrapping our HTML tags, we can have paper here. And if we save the file and we go back to our browser, we see we have a paper here. We just need to add more shadow to this paper. So we go back to the VScode and inside the paper tag, we add elevation as a new property and add 3 as the value. We save the file and check the browser again. We see we have more shadow, but the problem is we have some margin at the top. This margin is because of this h1 tag. For example, if we inspect the elements and we go to the layout section, we can see we have 21.44 margin at the top and the bottom of the h1. So we need to add a style at this specific h1 tag. There are two ways to add a style to a specific tag. The first way is to add class name and put a name for the class name. For example, we call it site name. And if we go inside style.css, we can add this class site name and open a curly braces. And inside a set of curly braces, we write margin 0 semicolon. If you go back to the browser, we see we remove the margin from the top and the bottom. There is another way to add a style to our tag. First, we delete this one, and I'll show you in a second how we add this style. We go to the header.js, we delete this class name, and we write a style equal to set of curly braces, and here we can add our margin. But here we added like this. So margin equals 0, and 0 should be inside a double quote. So we save and we go to the browser. We see again that we don't have any margins. The other things I want to do, if you zoom here, I would like to remove this curve from the header. So if we go inside the paper tag, we can add a square and save, and we have removed this curve easily. And I want to add some padding inside the paper as well. So we add a style here in paper. We just add some padding around 5 pixels. And as you can see, we have added some padding easily inside our header. Okay, we change this header to React app. First, we remove the zoom. The other things I want to do is to change the font of React app. So let's go and search for font Google. We have to click on the first link, that is fonts.google.com. So we click on this link. Here we write React app, and we check here which font is suitable for our application. So I click here. And we choose the regular 400 and select this style. We click on import. So we copy this code and we paste it inside styles.css at the top. Okay. We go back to the font.google, and if you scroll down, so we copy this and we paste it inside styles.css just below min height here. We save the file and we go back to our browser. We see that our font has been changed. The other things I want to do is to change this font to be cursive. So we go back to the VScode, and inside header.js, we add a style. We write down font family cursive. You can see we have a cursive font here. I would rather to have a thinner font. So we go back to VScode and we add font weight 100. So we have a thinner font here. The other thing is, instead of using font family like we used inside styles.css font dash family, inside header.js we have to use it as a camel case. Font family without dash, and the family should be capitalized. Next things we want to do is to add a logo before the site name. So we search React. We choose images and we click here in all types and we choose transparent. We choose the size to be small, and I would like to choose this logo. So we copy this link and we paste it inside a img tag just before the h1 tag. So we add an img tag inside a src. We paste the link we have just copied. We save and we check our browser. As you can see, the size of the logo is very big. So we change the style of the image. We write style, add 2 curly braces, and we just add a width of 50 pixels. Now we have a smaller logo, but the problem is the logo and the site name are not inside the same row. So we add a style inside paper. We say display flex. We check the browser. As you can see, now the logo and our header are at the same row. Alright, we have finished creating our header. In the next section, we are going to create our footer. So see you in the next section. Alright, in the last section, we have created our header, including the logo and the site name. We have also changed the font of our site name, and we have added a paper using Material UI. In this section, we are going to create our footer and bring it down at the bottom of our page. Okay, let's go and create the footer. Here we right-click on Components folder and press on New File. We create the file and call it footer.js. Here, by using ES7 module, we use the prefix rfce to create the functional component. So we click on the first auto-suggestion by VScode. Now we got import React from React and a function returning an empty div and export default footer. So we add a paragraph here saying copyright, and we save the file and we add this component to the app.js. So let's go to app.js, and by using auto-suggestion again, we import the footer. So we write footer and we click on the first auto-suggestion. So we imported footer from this location. We just need to close the tag. Save the file and we check the browser. Yeah, we got the copyright here. Let's complete the footer. So copyright, we add the copyright symbol by just adding an and sign, copy, and semicolon. We save the file, we go back to the browser. Now we see the copyright symbol. Let's add the year and the name. So 2021 Sahand, which is my name. Now we have our copyright symbol, the year, and the name. The problem is the 2021 is a static year. And in the following years, for example, in 2022, if you launch this website, you need to update the year every year. So we change this static year to a dynamic one. Let's go back to the VScode. And here we need to add a date constructor. We need JavaScript to write date constructor function, but we haven't added any JavaScript inside our HTML before. It's very easy to add the JavaScript. We just need to use a set of curly braces. So we add a set of curly braces here, and inside it, we can add JavaScript. So we write new date, which is a date constructor, and we tap into its method called getFullYear. And we open a set of parentheses. Now we delete this 2021, save the file, and we check the browser. As you can see, we got 2021, but this 2021 is dynamic and it will be changed based on the local time. All right, let's bring this footer down at the bottom of the page. So we need to add a style to our paragraph here. We just write style, open two curly braces, and we write position, absolute, bottom, 0. We save the file and check the browser. Now we have our footer at the bottom of the page. Next thing we need to do to bring this footer at the center of the page. All right, let's first change the width of this paragraph to be 100% by writing width 100%. And then we use text align center to bring the footer to the center of the page. So we save the file, we check the browser. Now we see our footer is in the middle of the page. And this is completely mobile friendly. For example, if we change our browser to be smaller, we see that the footer is still in the middle of the page. All right, in the next section, we are going to create our main application. See you in the next section. All right, in the previous sections, we have created our header and footer. In this section, we are going to start creating our main application. Okay, let's go to the VScode. And let's create a new component. We right-click on Components folder, click on New File, and we create a file named note.js. Again, we use ES7 extension. We write RFC, and we click on the first auto-suggestion to create the functional component with export. Let's add a paper here. And we click on the first auto-suggestion to import paper from Material UI. As you can see, we have imported paper from Material UI/core. We add a header here saying title. And below the header, we add a paragraph saying content. Let's save the file and import it inside app.js. Just below header, we add the note component. And we click on the auto suggestion to import the note, and we close the tag. Let's check the browser. As you can see, we have a paper and a title and content. Let's add some styling to this paper. We go back to the VScode. We add a style to this paper tag. We add two set of curly braces. We add a min width 200 pixel, min height 100 pixel, padding 10 pixels, margin 20 pixels. We save it and check the browser. Now we have added some margin and some padding to this paper. Let's copy this paper inside app.js few times. So let's go back to the VS Code and inside app.js, we copy this note 2 times. We save the file and check the browser. Now you can see that we have 3 papers on the top of each other. We want these nodes to be next to each other. We go back to node.js and we add display inline flex. We save the file and check the browser. Now we have the nodes next to each other. But the problem is the title and content are at the same line. So we add a div to fix this. Let's go back to node.js. We add a div here. And we bring these two inside the div. We save the file and check the browser again. Now we have title and contents in different rows. Okay, that's it for creating node.js. In the next section, we are going to create a form here to allow the users to add their notes through this form. See you in the next section. Alright, in the last section, we have created a node.js component. In this section, we are going to create the form area. Okay, let's start creating the form area component. Right-click on Components folder and click on New File. We call the file formarea.js. Similar to what we have done before, we use RFC to create the React functional component export. So we click on the first auto-suggestion to have the functional component. Okay, let's add a paper here from Material UI. We click on the first auto-suggestion. We see that the paper has been imported from Material UI/core. Also, we add a form here. So just below the paper tag, we add a form tag. Inside the form, we add 2 text fields. Text field is a Material UI component. So we just write text field and we click on the first auto-suggestion to import text field from Material UI. As you can see, the text field has been automatically imported. We close the tag, we save the file, and we add it to app.js. So let's go to the app.js, and just below the header tag, we add the form area component. So we write form area, and we click on the first auto-suggestion, and we close the tag. We save the file, and we check the browser. As you can see, a text field has been added here. Let's add some styling to the paper. We go back to VScode. We go to formarea.js and we add a style here. We just write a style, add 2 set of curly braces. We write down margin, 10 pixels up and down, and 10% left and right. Also, we add a padding, 25 pixels up and down, and 50 pixels left and right. We save the file and check the browser again. You can now see the margin and the padding inside the paper. Let's go back to the VScode and complete our text field. Inside text field, we add a label. We call it title. And also we make the text field full width. And finally, we turn off the autocomplete. So we write down autocomplete off. We save it and check the browser again. As you can see, now we have a label and also the text field is full width. Okay, let's add another text field. We go back to VScode. We copy this text field and we just change the label to content. And also we want this text field to be multi-line. So we add multi-line property and we specify the number of rows. So we write rows equal to 4. We save the file and we check the browser again. Now we have 2 text fields. Also, we need to add a button here. So let's go back to the VS Code. And just below the text field, we add a floating action button, which is a Material UI component. So we write FAB and we click on the first auto suggestion. As you can see, we imported the floating action button from Material UI/core. So we close the tag and save it. We check the browser again. Now we have a button here. We just need to add a plus sign here. So we search Material UI again. We click on materialui.com. Here we search for icons. And here we click on material icons. As you can see here, first we have to install Material UI/icons. So we copy this. We go back to the VS Code. Inside the terminal, we go outside the application using Ctrl+C. And we paste the code and enter to install Material UI/icon. The installation process usually takes about a few seconds. So we write npm start again to start our application. We close the previous one and we go back to materialui.com. In Material Icons tab, we click on Search the full list of these icons. Here we search for Add, and we click on Add icon, and we copy this code. We go back to the VS Code, and at the top of form-area.js, we paste the code. Now we can use Add icon. So inside the fab tag, here we add the add icon. So we write add icon and we close the tag. We save the file and we check the browser. As you can see, we have the plus icon. We just need to add a margin at the top of the button. So we go back to the VS Code and we add a style here. So we write a style, we add 2 set of curly braces, and we write margin top 20 pixels. We save the file and check the browser again. Now we have a margin at the top of our button. In the next section, we are going to learn how we can store the information inside this form. For example, the title and the content. So see you in the next section. Alright, in the last section, we have created our form-area.js. We have created a form with 2 text fields inside it. In this section, we are going to store the information inside these 2 text fields. Okay, let's add a user state here. we just write useState. We click on the first auto-suggestion and we get a template of useState. We change this state to note and we modify this note to be capitalized. useState is a hook that allows you to have state variables in functional components. Actually, the useState hook is a special function that takes the initial state as an argument and returns an array of 2 entries. Let's import useState by deleting the last letter and writing it again, and we click on the second auto-suggestion. Here we imported useState from React. The first element is the current state, and the second one is a function that is used for updating the state. Let's change the initial state. We add an object with 2 elements. First is title, which is equal to an empty string, and then we have content, which is also an empty string. We save the file, and if we console log this note, and we check the browser, we open the web developer tool using Ctrl-Shift-C, go to the console, and we see that we have an object with title and content, which both are empty string. Okay, let's go to the VScode again, and we change the name and the value of the text fields. Here we say name, title, and the value would be note.title. We copy this and paste it in the other text field. We change the title to be content. We also need to use the onChange attribute to track the changes inside the 2 text fields. So we add onChange and set it to be equal to a function. So we write change handler. We copy this and add it to the other text field as well. Now we need to create the change handler function. So we copy this, and just below the useState, we create a function. And we call it change handler. We open a set of parentheses. We open a set of curly braces as well. Inside this function, we can get the values of the 2 text fields. We get the values through an event. So we add an event here. If we console log event.target, we check the browser again. If we write something in title or content, we see that inside the console log, we are getting the information from event.target. Now we can easily target name and the value. So we go back to the VScode, we delete the console log, we make a constant here with 2 values, name and value. And we make this equal to event.target. Now we have to use this function to update the value of the note. So we write setNote. We open a set of parentheses. First we get the previous values of the note. We just write pre-values. We make an arrow function. We write return, open a curly braces. We get the previous values using the spread operator. So we write 3 dots, previous values, and then we add the new values. We write the name inside an array and equal it to the value. The spread operator gives us the ability to have the previous values of an array or an object. We save the file and we check the browser again. Now if we write something in title or content, as you can see, we got the values inside the logs. And if we change the value only in content, the value of the title will be still available. This is because of using the spread operator. In the next section, we are going to learn how we transfer the data from this form to the app.js. And we are going to learn how to submit the information by clicking on this button. So see you in the next section. Alright, in the last section, we have stored the information from the forms inside this note variable. In this section, we are going to store all these notes inside app.js. So first, let's create a useState hook here. So we write useState and we click on the first auto-suggestion. We delete the state and we write notes. Remember that we have to capitalize this one. The initial state would be an empty array. So let's create the addNote function here. We write function addNote. We open a set of parentheses, and inside a set of curly braces, we write our function. We have to get the note variable from formArea.js here. We write setNotes. We open a set of parentheses and we get the previous values. We just call it previous notes. We make an arrow function and inside a set of curly braces, we return an array. First, we get the previous notes using a spread operator and we add the new note. Now we have to pass this function to formArea.js. So we copy this and paste it here in formArea tag equals to addNote. We save the file and we go to formArea.js and we get the function here. So we open a set of curly braces and we paste addNote here. Now we can use this function in formArea.js. First, we go to our button, and here we add an onClick attribute. So we write onClick equal to a function, and we call the function clickHandler. We create the function at the top, just below the state. We write function clickHandler. We open a set of parentheses and inside a set of curly braces, we use this addNote function. So we write addNote. We pass the note variable inside a set of parentheses and we save the file. We add a console log inside app.js. So here we just add console log notes. We save the file. So I have noticed that we have a typo here, so I delete this V here. We save the file again. Before checking the browser, we delete the other console log inside formArea.js. We save the file and check the browser. We see that we got an error saying useState is not defined. So we go back to the VScode. In app.js, we have to import useState here. So we delete the last letter and write it down again, and we click on the second auto-suggestion. Now we have imported useState from React. We save the file again, we check the browser. Now there is no error. We open the web developer tool using Ctrl+Shift+C. We go to the console. We write something in the form. For example, in title, I write milk. The content would be buy milk. And we submit it. As you can see, now we have an array here. If we open the array, now the array includes one object with the title milk and the content buy milk. Let's add another note. In the title, we say call and content call Hannah. We add the note. We can see that now we have two objects. One is milk, buy milk, and one is call Hannah. So we have successfully stored all our notes. The other things I want to do is to make title and content empty after submitting the notes. So we go back to the VScode, and inside formArea.js, we go inside the click handler function, and just below the addNote function, we write setNote, and inside a set of parentheses and a set of curly braces, we just need to copy this title and content and paste it here. Now, after adding the note variable would be empty. We save the file and check the browser again. For example, we submit this note again. As you can see, the title and content now is empty after the submission. In the next section, we are going to show all the data from the array inside these notes. So see you in the next section. Alright, in the last section, we have created an array which contains all the nodes. In this section, we are going to use a JavaScript method called map to show all the nodes here. Let's first search JavaScript map an array. And we click on developers.mozilla.org website. If you scroll down a little bit, we can see a JavaScript demo of using map method. As you can see, we have an array of numbers. Here we can map through it, and we can double each element here. We want to use this method to map through our nodes array. So let's go to VS Code. We delete this console log, and we go down. Here, instead of having 3 node tags, we just open a set of curly braces to write JavaScript codes, and we write nodes.map. We open a set of parentheses, and here we can access each node. So we write node, we make an arrow function, and we open a set of parentheses again. Inside this set of parentheses, we add our node tag again, and we pass 2 properties. First is title, which would be node.title, and also content, which is node.content, and we close the tag. Now we need to get these properties inside node.js. So we go to node.js, and here at the top, inside this set of parentheses, we open a set of curly braces, and we write title and content. And here at the bottom, instead of having title and content, which are static, we open a set of curly braces, and we write the title and the content, which we are getting from here. So we've saved the file. Also, we saved the file in app.js. Now we check the browser. We go to our application. Now if we add something in our form, like milk, buy milk, and we submit it, we get the note here. Let's add another one. For example, meeting at 3 p.m. We submit it. As you can see, now we have 2 nodes. In the next section, we are going to add a delete button at each node, which allows us to delete the node that we don't want. So see you in the next section. Alright, in the last section, we have tried the map method to show all the nodes here. In this section, we are going to add a delete button for all the nodes. So let's go to the VS Code. We go to node.js, and here at the bottom, just below this div, we add a material UI button. So we just write button and we click on the first auto suggestion. As you can see, we have imported the button from material UI/core. We close the tag and we add an icon from material UI called delete icon. So we write delete icon. We close the tag and we import it at the top. So just below the import React from React, we write import delete icon from material UI/icon/delete. We save the file and we check the browser. We can see that a trash icon has been added to each node. We just need to add some style into them. First, we close this. We go back to the VS Code, and in button tag, we write style. We open two set of curly braces, and we write margin left 120 pixels. We save the file and check the browser again. Now we can see that the trash icon is at the end of the node. I would like to change the trash icon color to be red. So we go back to the VS Code, and in delete icon tag, we add a style, color, red. We save and check the browser again. Now we can see we have red trash icons. Let's go back to the VS Code. In app.js, we add a function for deleting nodes. So at the top, just below addNote function, we write function delNote. We open a set of parentheses. Inside these parentheses, we have to get the ID of each node. We open a set of curly braces. Here we use the setNodes function to delete the node. So we write setNodes. We open a set of parentheses and we get the previous nodes. We make an arrow function. Here we return the previous nodes, and we use the JavaScript filter method. We just write filter. We open a set of parentheses. We open a set of parentheses again. In the filter method, we can have access to two things. The first one is each node, and the second one is the index of each node. We make an arrow function. We open a set of curly braces, and we return all the nodes except with the one with the same ID and index. So we write index not equal to ID. So we return everything except with the node that has the same ID and index. So we save the file. Now we need to pass this function to node.js. So we copy this, we go down, and at the node tag, we paste the function, and we equal it to delNode function. The other things we need to pass is the index of each node. Similar to filter method, the map method also can give you the index of each node. So here we add index, and we pass the index as a property of node. So we write here ID equals index. We save the file, we go to node.js, and at the top, we add the ID and function here. We just write ID and delNode. We go down, here at the button tag, we just add an onClick attribute. We just write onClick, and we equal it to click handler function. And we just need to create this function at the top. So we copy this, and at the top, just above the return, we make the function click handler. We open a set of parentheses, we open a set of curly braces, and here we trigger the function delNode, and we pass the ID. We save the file. We check the browser. Now if we click on each button, we're going to delete the note. So we click on here. As you can see, we don't have that note anymore. Let's try to remove this note as well. So we click on this button. Now we don't have any notes. Okay, that was it for our project. I hope you enjoyed and learned the basic of the Reacts. Please let me know your opinion about the course and wait for the course updates. Thanks again and see you next time.